Hey, we're back. Yes, we are back. My name is Jeff Harrison, along with,
Leslie Spoor, who's trying to do the Vogue thing, not very well.
I'm not sure exactly what she's doing. I thought she was like saying, okay, it's a square and this is how big it is. I didn't know for sure. Hey, welcome to the Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted Entrepreneur Podcast. Again, my name is Jeff,
Yeah.
entrepreneur. Yeah, I try not to put her in that position of saying that word because that's her favorite word, but it's her most difficult word to say.
I cannot
Um,
say it. I don't know what's wrong.
yeah. So,
Entrepreneurial. I,
yeah, I think you should just stick with dancing.
dancing.
That's
Okay.
it. Hey, a couple weeks ago, we talked about, as a customer trying to save money and do things on the cheap, what did that get them? And I want to reverse that and say, what if we as business owners, we're trying to be that customer who's trying to get things always on the cheap?
Right.
And I want to I don't know how long this is going to go. We're going to try to stay very concise as far as what we're talking about, but it's more of an open discussion. And Leslie, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, not only as an entrepreneur, but also as a consultant in the aerospace industry, where I'm thinking, you're always trying to get the very best price. Well, wait a second. I'm thinking you should be trying to get the very best price and the very best product. But what happens if someone says, hey, I'm going to go with the third option and I'm going to go with the least expensive versus the one that's most competitive? What typically happens?
Well, typically you end up, there's usually hidden costs associated with the cheapest option because quite often people have this mentality of if I bid low, I'll get the work. And then I can come in later with changes or say there's a scope change. I see quite often quotes that come to me, even for work at my own business, are very limited in the scope and what they say. And I always go back and say, well, what about this? And what about this? And is this included? Because if it's not, if the ink's not dry, if it's not on the paper or digital paper, then it's highly possible they're going to come back and charge you more money, which drives me crazy. I don't bid like that when I bid jobs for people. So I don't want people to bid me that way.
Well, it feels like sometimes, when it's that communication thing. And I think you said something pretty important there that said, if it's not on paper, then it's only in my head. Oh, I thought you meant you were going to do this.
Right.
And they say, well, this is what we agreed to. And I'll give you an example, a real life example. About 8 months ago, maybe, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, we had our house painted. And I was very clear with what I wanted. I had it written out. Everything was done. And then towards the end, the gentleman charged me an extra $2,500. And I'm like, what is that all about? And it was like this arbitrary number that he just sprung out and brought up. And I'm like, no, no.
For what?
Yeah, he just said, oh, well, I had to go back and do extra painting about this, and I had to do this and this. I'm like, but that's in the scope of work.
Right.
Well, what's happened is that particular gentleman who was getting a tremendous amount of referral business from someone you and I both know, because of that, and I went back and told that person what had happened, that he sprung this on me when we were at the finish line. Like literally, I was signing the final check, and he says, "Oh no, it's an additional $2,500." And so what that did is it ended up costing him future revenue, where this other guy that was referring people, was giving him a lot of business. And so that was like, it's not my fault, right? And I think what happened was it was a situation where he had two people doing the job at the beginning. One person got ill, so he had to do more work. It took longer. So in his mind, he's thinking, I should charge more. No, I didn't charge by the hour. I charged for the job.
Right. Exactly. And that's how they should all be billed or bid. Yeah.
Yeah. And even me, when I go out and I try to get people to work for me, like let's say, for instance, I have a video editor. I never charge. They'll say I charge X number of dollars an hour. I said, that's great, but here's my job. I want to know how much it is per piece so that I can budget for it. Because one time long ago, I had somebody, Leslie, that was building something. Geez.
I'm
Already I'm
sorry.
losing her. If you're watching this, you're watching, I'm sorry. She's yeah, she was probably pulling an all-nighter again. I don't know what
No, I
happened.
didn't do an all-nighter, but I had a 6 a.m. call and I had to get up early. So I've been working now for like 6 or 7 hours already.
So embarrassing. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't
So
mean,
embarrassing.
well, when I'm trying to do something and I'm thinking, then I need oxygen in my brain, and that's what
Jeez.
happens. I end up yawning. But
The
sorry, I
key is to
digress.
breathe. Key is to breathe through the nose. Breathe through the nose.
All right, go
Okay.
ahead. I'm
So
sorry.
anyway, so what I was saying is now I'm totally lost. I have no idea what I was even
You were
talking
saying that
about.
you want to buy the piece so you can budget. See, I was listening.
Correct. So there was a situation where I was building something for a client, and it was very intricate, pretty big deal. And the guy insisted. He said, listen, this is the most I'll charge, but I'm going to charge you by the hour, but I'll be able to deliver on that price. And he didn't, and he couldn't, and I was stuck. And I had to end up, it cost me about $9,000 because I had to go back and find somebody else to do the job because this guy did a terrible job and he didn't finish the job.
It's a
So
good thing you didn't tell your coach that, because she would have had a stroke.
this was before my coach, but anyway, so that was like that learning moment for me. And it wasn't because of the cheap. I didn't hire this guy because he was cheap. I hired him because he was supposed to be really, really good. And he
Right.
did a poor job, and then he didn't deliver, and then he ghosted me. So anyway, there are some downsides of us as business owners going out and trying to get the cheapest bid. And
Yeah, I don't recommend. I recommend. Oh, sorry, can I interrupt?
no, go right ahead. Right
Okay,
ahead.
sorry.
I want you to start talking so you'll stop yawning.
I'm sorry. Yes, I need to talk. So, what I was going to say is, when we go to get a bid as a business owner, I don't say that you necessarily have to get 3 bids. A lot of people want to get 3 bids as just a rule of thumb and see what all of the different pricing is. But generally, it's hard to get apples to apples comparisons. It's hard to get the exact same scope between the bids. So either you have to be able to evaluate where the differences are and allow for that in the bid, or you have to just go out and do some research ahead of time, looking for reviews of people, checking on their work ahead of time, because like none of us go on Amazon. I don't go on Amazon and buy something without reading the reviews. And I'm terrible about leaving reviews, but the people who are good at leaving them generally are the ones who have negative things to say. So I can evaluate, even on the negative reviews, how much of it is user error or a misunderstanding of something versus something is really wrong with the product, right? You have to kind of read between the lines when you read these. And so when you go to get bids, you have to keep in mind that apples and apples, or the scope staying the same, is difficult to achieve on a bid for a business. I will say a lot of people, everything comes down to perception of value, right? So if a client or you're trying to buy something for your business, or to engage in labor support or anything, it all comes down to whether we see value in what we're trying to get. Right? Because you will spend on something you see value in, and you won't spend if you don't. So when I get a client who nickel and dimes me, I know they don't see value in what we do, right? Because when they do, they don't question it. Okay. The same for us. If I go out to get a bid for something and I'm trying to do it the cheapest, like I said, quite often the people either no bid it, or they will say it's only this little bit. In your scenario that you're talking about, I would never do that to somebody. I always, if there's a scope change, I identify it as soon as I know about it. I give them a price and I get approval. That way, when you get to the end, there's no surprises. And that should be, all business owners should implement that, whether they're getting bids for some work like you did with your painting, or whether we're bidding something for clients, and then to make sure that we're protected, because the last thing you want is somebody not to pay you for fair and justified work. Yeah. Right. And so I see that a lot in my industry. I don't know how much you see it in your industry, but because I know you utilize labor from all over the world, right? Yep. You don't stick to just local labor. You go everywhere, wherever you can find the best editors and the best video people and whatnot. For me, I work with people all over the United States, but this particular industry, lifestyle management, which is the one where I'm doing selling time, or whether it's concierge business solutions where I'm doing consulting and coaching and software and stuff, people don't seem to understand that you have to invest in your business in order to be successful. They see so many, I built $1 billion business on $3 type headlines, and it's not real. It is absolutely not real. And especially these days, here we are 20 years later doing this stuff, and technology has advanced to the point where you have to invest in technology. I had a lady, did I talk about the lady with the 80 hours of non-billable time on the podcast? Did I talk about that?
You did. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You showed how that. Yeah.
Yeah. She had 80 hours. I'm still flabbergasted. 80 hours of non-billable time when a simple digital software system will eliminate all of that, all of it. And so I'm just constantly flabbergasted where people don't look and monetize the cost associated with doing business, right? If you're doing business and you're still keeping track of things on spreadsheets and have to combine, I had somebody tell me this morning that they combine different payroll records to create a single payroll because they pay their employees different rates depending on what they're doing. Which is okay, but kind of complicated, but okay.
Sounds complicated.
Yeah, but they have to take, like, if they charge this for this much time and this for this much time and this for this much time, now they have to collate all that to come up with an actual time card. Wow. And so it's like, what? I'm like, but I can solve all that in my software as far as that goes. But but people don't, how much time does she spend collating that data, right, every 2 weeks, and how many people? So if it takes her 30 minutes for one, assuming she gets phone calls, interruptions and stuff, so it still takes 30 minutes, and she's got 5 people, that's what, 2.5 hours of non-billable time that could be eliminated. That's just one pay period. She has 2 pay periods a month, so 5 hours a month that she could be doing other things if you just automated that process.
Yeah.
Right. But then people don't want to spend the money to automate because they see the initial investment and they're like, well, that's a lot of money. And I'm like, yeah.
But don't you look at that, Leslie, or wouldn't you coach somebody on that of saying, yes, that's an investment. What's your return on investment? How long before you break even? Is it going to be 3 months, 3 years? What's the deal? Is it 10 years? Like we had a conversation about solar, a couple of days ago. Right. And it was like, well, how long before I break even? Well, it was like 3 years. And if it's one of those things you're saying, well, are you going to be in your home for 3 years? Well, yeah, I don't plan on leaving. Well, then it's not a really hard choice. But if you're saying, well, I think I'm going to be moving next year, maybe you probably wouldn't do it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so I'm just thinking from a business perspective, you have to do ROI on everything, which is return on investment for those listening who are not familiar with an ROI acronym. But return on investment, how long does it take? If you're going to advertise, right, that's another cost of doing business. And you want to buy a billboard. In the old days, they were $2,500 a month. I don't know what they are today, but they were $2,500. I knew I had to get at least one client, 1.5 clients to pay for that off that billboard. That was my return. If I got one really good client or 2 average clients, then it would cover the cost. So it was worth doing. If I'm doing mailers, it's the same thing. A mailer, as you know, has a 0.5% return. Yeah. So, so I send out 5,000 and 0.5% is what, 50 or
not many.
Not many. I can't do the math because my brain's has oxygen. And so you have to say, well, how many, I'm going to get responses from 5 people. Let's go really bad. Let's say 5 people.
That's 0.5%.
If all of them sign up, right, then it's well worth doing the mailers. But if you only get 1 or 2, maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not. But you have to be willing to take that chance. So as a business owner, what I'm trying to say about going cheap is that cheap is not always better. Value is better. Would you agree with that? The value is
100%.
better. It's easy to
100%.
fall into a trap too, where you think, I know for a fact that you did some work in your house and you had somebody doing work that wasn't super expensive and you thought it was good, but it turned out the value really wasn't there for that work. And so does that mean you have to redo it? Some of it, maybe. Is it going to last? Are you going to be 100% happy? Maybe, maybe not, you know, if for only the reason that it took way longer than you expected, you know. So people as business owners, we're using home examples because they're the easiest to relate to. But as a business owner, you need to look at what you're getting and what it's saving you in the long run. Agreed?
Agreed. Totally. Totally.
You know, we give phones and tablets to all of our employees. They have company phones and company tablets, and we do that because our software is all cloud-based, so we need them to have something in the field to work on that they can actually type. It's more like a laptop, but it's a tablet. It's an Android kind of tablet. And then they have their iPhones to go with them on that. My office manager and we were paying, I think, $800 a month for all these devices, something like that, crazy. And she went in and I never questioned it because I know all that stuff's expensive, right? She went in and renegotiated everything and got it all down the same stuff, better stuff, newer stuff for $400 a month.
Wow.
And my people have the latest tools and they're doing a good job and it makes their job easier. And so, you know, when it comes to value, and I guess what I'm trying to say is that you shouldn't rest on your laurels. There's things that you need to evaluate every year. Insurances is one, right? Credit card fees is another one. Do you take credit cards, Jeff? I don't know that you do. You don't take.
Well, actually, I do through like Stripe and PayPal, that type of thing. But no, I don't have a merchant account where, you know, hey, I'm taking it's all through Stripe.
Yeah. So I've been using a merchant services account since I started for 20 years. And every year we have to go and check because the cost creeps up. The per transaction cost will creep up over time. Most people never look at it, you know, so you should look. I guess I've migrated now into costs associated with your business, but I'm trying to say that you don't have to be cheap. You just have to be prudent and aware of what you're spending so that you can keep your cost optimal. My accountant used to be amazed because my overhead would go down, but my profit margins would go up. And generally, that's not what happens. Generally, your overhead goes up as your profits grow. Your overhead also grows. And we were able to keep that trimmed down. And you would say, well, how do you do that? Well, that's why you need people like me and you to help them with that issue. Can you hear my landscapers?
I can, but that's okay. So, you know, here's another an additional view on when you're always trying to get the cheapest. Here's some downsides of that.
Okay.
I think if as an example, let's say I reach out to a vendor, it doesn't matter who it is. I reach out to a vendor who I always will do hard negotiations with and not allow them to really make a decent profit. Well, all of a sudden, as they get busier, what happens? They're not available for me. Right. And so maybe they can't take on that work, or maybe their response to me gets worse because they're saying there's not much profit there. Like, you know, Jeff's going to nickel and dime me down to the bone. And the only one who makes any money is Jeff. And so that could be a negative impact that we don't think of. That's not an ROI thing, but it does turn out to say, wow, now my back is against the wall and I need help. Now I'm going to have to go hire somebody else, and I'm probably not going to get them on the cheap, because what I was saying, I think it's like you can have it fast, you can have it good, or you can have it something, but you can't have all three. You can only have one of those. So it's like my staff, what I like to do, and this comes from me being a golfer, we always said when we gambled, we said, hey, fast pay makes fast friends. Well, I like to say there's a gentleman who works for me. His name is Faisal, and he does tremendous amount of stuff. He does a lot of our web-based stuff, building websites, landing pages, things like that. And he's just a super guy. And so many times I'll ask him for a one-off thing. Hey, can you put this code on for Facebook pixel on a website, and he doesn't. I'll say, how much is he said? No problem. So what I do is I will send him bonuses for no reason at all.
Really?
And yeah. And so because he's always available for me. And because of that, that's exactly what happens. If I can send him a message, we use WhatsApp anytime, it doesn't matter, day, night, weekends, and I need help, boom, he's on top of it and he takes care of it, because I didn't go on the cheap. I did just the opposite. I said, hey, he's a valuable part of my team and I want to pay him properly. And even when he says, hey, don't worry, I'll let that stuff and say, hey, he's done 2 or 3 things for me, and I know my time is valuable, his time is valuable. I will pay him a bonus of something. Not a lot, right? It may be $100 for his time, but he sees that and like, hey, you know what? I want to take care of Jeff. So that's the flip side of the whole idea.
Right.
When you go on the cheap.
Right. Another thing that happens when you go on the cheap is you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we were trying to say that earlier, but you do. If you use cut rate services or cheap software, or you hire lower level staff so you can get them a lesser rate, they can affect your reputation. If you bought a cheap website, that can break. I get annoyed when I see ones that are template websites. I know when I see one that it's just or a business card that's a template that you got from some, I'm not going to use any names, but when you get from a certain places, you go, oh my God, this person did not invest in their business or make an effort, So it can cost you in reputation. It can cost you in missed deadlines or poor customer service. I mean, buying cheap is definitely not always the best way to go.
Yeah, it's what's that saying? It says, if you can't afford an expert, hire an amateur, because what's going to happen is that job's not going to get done properly and you're going to have to hire somebody. So it's probably going to cost you twice as much as what it was going to do to be done. And that happens. I don't want to say it happens every time, but it happens enough till you say, okay, I'm done being burned. I'm going to step up. And it may not be saying, hey, I'm going to pay the highest price, but maybe you go from the lowest price bidder to the middle price bidder. And you can see a significant change in what happens, the professionalism, the being on time, the delivery of the product.
So that's a big one.
Yeah, all of that stuff. And it may just be that step up, because this person he or she is offering that lowest price service that we were being attracted to. They're still getting business, but they're not getting repeat business.
Right. Yeah. It's usually one and done, because you find out right away that this isn't what you were looking for. And so
it's no different. It's no different than going to a restaurant and it's supposed to be really good. And you go there and the prices are it's supposed to be good. And you're like, that was the worst experience. I'm never going back there. Well, that's what happened.
I heard that from you once.
Yeah. I'm never going back there. I'm not going to do it. And so.
Well, here's another thing that can happen if you try to go cheap. A lot of people try to DIY a bunch of things because they feel like they don't want to pay for it. So they'll just do it. And what happens then is you get major burnout and quality suffers. And you're twisted, bent, and exhausted all the time, right? That was a shameless plug right there.
That was good.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought I'd just segue that right in there. And I know we've talked about this before, is that, I didn't want to hire a bookkeeper in the beginning because I didn't want to spend the money. But because the money was it was 2/3 of what I was charging clients at the time. Right. So it was a big chunk. It was like, how many hours do I bill in order to pay for this? And it was like a lot, because, and so I tried to do it myself until I wanted to throw the computer through the wall. I know I've talked about that a lot, because to me, that was a turning point in my business. It was when I teach delegation and I teach hiring the right resources for you. But when you're doing it yourself, when you're living it every day, and especially when you're living it by the cost of a widget or the cost of an hour in order to make a living, you start to get very careful in how you spend things, because you got to make money. And if you're a solopreneur and it's only you selling and you've got to do this, and you've got rent, and you've got overhead, and you've got all this stuff, it can be quite intimidating to start to bring in help. But burnout is a very real business killing event in your life. It will absolutely kill your business. You will get to the point where you say, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to go get a W-2 job and let somebody else make all the decisions and sell all the work. And I will just work and go home and forget about it. Unfortunately, those of us, you and I could not do that because we are entrepreneurs by heart.
We're unemployable.
We're unemployable because only because we're in charge. We're the bosses. We know what to do. We know how to run a business. We don't want to work for somebody else that's generally oftentimes quite inadequate at running a business or leading people. I mean, how many of us have ever worked for a company and said, my boss is an idiot, right?
Yeah.
You can see the stuff that needs to happen and you're like, why can't they? It's like, ugh. So I couldn't work for somebody else anymore. I have to be my own boss. But when you have a business and it's time to delegate and avoid that burnout, you need to find good people. You need to look at the ROI, including how much time it's saving you. That is a valid point of the return you're getting on that investment, is because when I hired the bookkeeper, my business grew like, again, it grew half again as much because I had the time to go market and chase clients and stuff. So you have to really think about that. Trying to be cheap and doing it all yourself is not the way to go.
Well, I think something that you have taught, and I remember way back when I was filming you doing videos, and you were talking about making sure to price your services properly, to think from a standpoint of, and again, this is me interpreting it may not be your words, but it's basically saying, when you set your prices, don't set them for what you think you can do it for. Set it for what you think you have to hire somebody, and then you can still make a profit for. Meaning, okay, I'd do it for $25 an hour, but I can't hire somebody for $22 an hour, and I can't live on $3 profit. That ain't going to work. Right.
And there isn't $3 profit because that $25 doesn't take into account your overhead.
I'm just trying to make a quick example. Jeez.
I'm sorry. I can't help it. I teach this stuff.
I was trying to do simple math, folks. Sorry. But and so that becomes a challenge, right? The other thing is and this is something, this happened to me as a business owner. Somebody was saying your prices are too high. And they weren't saying they couldn't afford it. They were saying my prices were too high. So what I did, I said, well, this is a good time for me to do some shopping and find out what everybody else is charging. So what I did is I went on and said, okay, if I hired somebody to do social media marketing, how much would that cost? And what should I be charging, or what could I expect to pay? And it gave me a number. Same thing for writing blog articles, same thing for doing videos, same thing for doing live streams. And I sent this information to the person, and it was a wake-up call for them. They realized, oh my gosh, Jeff is in line. In fact, he's even better than in line for the pricing. If I had to go hire somebody else, this is what the market is saying that you should pay somebody. Right. And so sometimes it's just, we don't know. So my point in saying that is, if you're thinking about hiring somebody, do a little research in advance. Don't just wait for them to come back with a number and then have sticker shock because you've never done it. It's almost like buying a house. Well, I haven't bought a house in 25 years. And when I did buy a house, it was $149,000, and now they're $949,000. I'm like, holy cow, right? Yeah. Do some research in advance. If you're wanting to hire somebody to do any kind of service, whether it's yours in absentee home ownership or absentee care, fractured ownership, if you will. What do you call it? Fractured
home management.
Fractured home management. Find out what that costs. So when you go into it, you don't think, oh, they're really outrageous or whatever, because even the cheapest price might blow you away, like, holy cow. But that's not what the market is saying it should be. Do your homework up front.
Yeah, we can't ever recommend what you should charge. That's another sticky wicket when I'm coaching people and doing consulting. They'll often say, well, how much should I charge? And I can't tell you, because that's called price fixing. What I can tell you is how to evaluate what your overhead and what your costs are going to be and how much profit you want to make so that you can calculate your own rate. And you got to think about that. California, which is where we are, is extremely difficult to do business in because we have, the cost of everything is so high, everything. And so, insurance and I have a real office, so I've got to pay that overhead. And, there's just a lot to do. Taxes in this state are crazy. And so you have to take all that into consideration. And then, like you said, how much profit do you need to make? And I say need to make instead of want to make, because there's a thing that you need to think of yourself is how much is enough, right? You're probably not going to turn into Bill Gates. You might. You're probably not going to. But there are a lot of players in between where we are and Bill Gates, and you can make a good living and still have a fair price and still cover your business. A lot of that comes down to where do you want to be in 5 years? And I'm 20 years in, I'm still going, where do I want to be in 5 years? Because you have to think of that. Clients change, your target client changes, the cost of doing business changes, how much you invest in systems is going to change, especially as things like with you and all your AI, which we're going to talk about next week. There's so much opportunity that you have to take advantage of it, or you will fall behind. And that was part of the next piece, is that if you don't avail yourself of good quality labor, good systems, and good coaching and stuff, your business will stagnate and die.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't grow, you can't scale if you don't have it. We're always talking about scaling your business, right? We have a significant amount of clients under our Executive Aaron's umbrella, way more than industry average for this kind of business, right? But I could not do that without the systems we have in place, whether that be policies and procedures, or whether that's software, or whether that's automation. You cannot be all things to all people unless you have the right tools.
Yeah.
Right? And going cheap on that, all that does is it halts your business, and it says, okay, you can't grow anymore because you can't manage it.
Yeah.
Or if you try to manage it and grow, your quality suffers, your reputation suffers, you get exhausted, your family life suffers. I mean, everything suffers if you don't treat your business like a real business and not the cheapest thing on the planet. I'm waiting for your input. You're like glazed over. So
I'm just waiting for the clothesline on that.
Oh, you want a clothesline? That was really it. Basically, you end up staying stuck in the weeds, right? Patching every little hole with duct tape. And what you really want to do is, and well, duct tape is a really good product. I'm very impressed with duct tape from over the years, and WD-40 for that matter, but I digress, is that you can't keep patching holes. You have to create a seamless, automated, strong foundation, strong processes, a way to easily teach your people. I mean, there's just so much benefit to what we're saying about how to build a business and not go cheap with it. Yeah, it's going to cost you some money. It is. But in the case of the lady with the 80 hours of non-billable time, that equates at her billable rate to about over $7,000. For what I'm trying to encourage her to implement in her company, it has a 1 month return.
Wow.
Excuse me, that's $7,000 a week.
Wow.
So it's $32,000 a month.
Well, 4 times 7 is 28.
Or 28, it's 4.3, but I'm not going to quibble. So, because there's 4.3 weeks in a month, but okay. So she, it will pay for itself in a month. And the reduced stress and the reduced anxiety and the better improvement in her data and the better ability to train people. And then her people aren't working so hard. One of her employees told me the other day that she paid for her own Uber to get from one client to the other because the traffic was so bad where they are and the public transportation wasn't good. So she paid for her own
gosh.
Uber. Yeah. When you work for a company, it shouldn't cost you money to work for them. Right? That's not good. There's days where I want my people to pay their own way, but you know, you just can't do that. It's frowned upon. So I'm teasing, of course. But you know what I'm saying is that you need to look at the whole picture of your business and what makes sense. Um, when you hire people from all over the world, does that affect how do you deal with the time zones on that? Because I know you get good labor rates that way. How does it affect the time? How do you deal with the time zone piece of that?
Yeah, it's usually not a problem, because the good news is typically when we hire somebody, one of the questions we ask is, what time frame do you work on? And surprisingly enough, many of them, because they're getting the bulk of their clients from the US, will work on our time frame. So it might be, 1 o'clock in the morning there, but they're working on our time frame because it's 9 o'clock in the morning here. And so it's usually not a problem. And for those that we hire that work for us, that maybe they're not on the clock when we are, that is also an advantageous move, because then we can work throughout the day. At the end of the day, we can then hand it off to them and they'll get it done. We wake up in the morning and it's done. So it's almost like we're running a 24-hour business, but we are only working our 8 hours. They're working their 8 hours, and it works out really well. So, they're getting work done while we're sleeping, and vice versa. We're working and implementing what they've done while they're sleeping.
Right. I don't get to sleep, but okay.
Yeah.
That's why I had that 6 o'clock meeting this morning, because it was East Coast time and they want to do it at 9 o'clock in the morning. And my job is to make their life easier. So therefore, I'm the one that gets up early, which is fine.
That's a whole benefit of not too far in the future. We'll have avatars that we can actually send to those meetings to be us, as us, and interact as us. And the other participants won't know the difference, and you'll be still in bed, and the meeting will run well. So
that's a scary thought.
It's not far away. So anyway, I want to put on the screen your information about, because we're talking about working on your business, not in your business, and how we can get stuck by doing these things we're talking about. But today we're talking about, when you're a business owner, you're trying to go on the cheap, it's not going to work out for you, because what happens is you're going to have a lot of negative ramifications. It's almost like dropping a rock in a pond. There are those concentric circles, and they're going to affect your business. Each one has a different impact. The closer to where you drop the rock, the bigger. And sometimes it could be they don't answer your phone calls. They don't get back to you on time. They go out the next one. The quality suffers. B, the reviews go down. C, and it just gets worse and worse. So I wanted to turn this over to you and tell us about your course here that can help people make sure they get the right things in place to run an effective business.
Thank you. Well, my course is called Freedom by Design, Build a Business That Runs Without You. And it's intentionally designed to help you not only get your foundation organized, which I use a puzzle metaphor. So the edges of the puzzle are your foundation of your business. And most business owners get stuck in the middle, unsure of what puzzle piece goes where, how to coordinate everything, how to make them dovetail together as a cohesive a business. And so this course, Freedom by Design, teaches you not only all the components that you need to run a business, but how they fit together and how you can best build your company so that eventually you can walk away from it. And when I say walk away, I don't mean as an exit strategy, although that is one of the results of it. What I mean by that is that you can have a life and have some balance, because as a business owner, I'm sure you know that it's all too easy to be so tied up in your business, working in it, that you can't take a vacation. You can't spend time with your kids in the summer, or your grandkids, taking time off to go to the movies or go get a massage, or even just take a nap, which I need really badly right now. Even just to do that becomes impossible. So this course will teach you all of the fundamentals you need, all of the basics, all of the industry best practices in order to run a really good, solid company that's scalable, including the systems and tools that you need in order to automate and delegate and grow your company. So I highly recommend that you check it out. That learn.conciergebusinesssolutions.com. That's a page. You'll see the curriculum for each of the different levels. There's 3 different levels of this course. I do recommend you do the highest level because then you get the bonus features and you get a lifetime membership in our mastermind group. So take a look at it. Just check it out and see what it's like. It's course study on your time. It's extremely affordable considering, as opposed to hiring me to teach it to you all personally. It's much more affordable to do self-study. You'll get a certificate when you're done, which everybody likes. And you'll know so much more about your business and why you started and how to get it to the place where you want it to be. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you for letting me talk about that.
You bet. I was going to pull up the page so we could see it, but I couldn't get it done fast enough. Sorry. Okay. So again, it was a bit of a rambling conversation today, really about, hey, if you are a business owner, you're trying to do it on the cheap, what does that do? It literally just tends to cost you money and time. And so keep that in mind when you're out there. And again, my biggest takeaway that I could give you is, if you're going in to do something that you haven't had done before, do some research in advance and find out what the market is saying that is worth. So when you're doing this, before you even go into this, you might be in a situation you're saying, you know what, at this time, I can't afford to do that because the market says the average is this, and I can't afford to pay for that right now. Like you were saying about the bookkeeper, it took a while. Once you put the bookkeeper in place, you got to the point you said, I can afford to do that. So I would say some research. That would be my biggest takeaway for you today. If you write that down, what would be your biggest one today?
Well, I would say that frugality is smart, but being cheap is expensive. So wise business owners know when to save and when to invest, especially in people, systems, and tools that pay off over time. And by pay off, I mean scaling your business, allowing you to spend more time bringing in new business, cultivating new clients, new investors, or even new products for your business. So again, remember that frugality is smart and cheap is, what I say was cheap is expensive. So keep that in mind.
Okay, very good. All right, Leslie. Well, thank you again for a great show today. I really appreciate it.
Your voice went away. I don't know where you went.
I'm here.
Oh, you know what? It's me.
Yep.
Hang on. Try again. Sorry, my fault. I hit the button. You know.
All right. Here we go.
This is real live stuff. Okay, it's real live stuff.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, there's not a lot of editing that we do on this podcast because, you know, that's the beauty about what we do is there could be some wisdom come out we hadn't planned on. But in the meantime, my name is Jeff Harrison and my friend Leslie Spoor. We're with the Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted Entrepreneur podcast. And we really appreciate you being here. This is like I think we're really closing in on 30 episodes.
Wow. And where can we find, we're on Spotify and YouTube, but are we on like Apple Music or any of that? I don't know.
We're not. We're just on those two platforms. And then, you know, the idea is we try to, you know, share that on like LinkedIn, Facebook, things of that nature. So those are the two platforms are on Spotify. And because, you know, what's interesting is even though podcasting has become even more and more popular, what it used to be is I was looking through this. I have another podcast called The Fairway Executive, and I did like 41 episodes back in the day, and I videotaped everything. But at that point, you couldn't even have a video. It was only audio. So I had to strip out the audio and I have 41 versions. And the reason I bring that is because somebody asked me, they said, you know, as a guest, I've never heard of your show. And they said, I only saw 3 on YouTube because now we do it with video, right? So I sent them a link to the other one that had the 41 on there. And like, oh, I see. Okay, so this is not your first rodeo. No, it's not.
Well, and do they still like, I mean, it's hard for me to keep up with this. So they still need to like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff with these things these days?
They can and they do, but here's what happens. The algorithms start saying, and this is true throughout anything, I don't care if it's Netflix or whatever, is if you watch one of our programs, then what it's telling the algorithm is, oh, I like that. Especially if you have, let's say, for instance, this is 40 minutes. Okay. And you spend 20 minutes watching it. We'd love you to spend the whole time, of course, but let's say you spend 20 minutes. The algorithm says, oh, wait a second. They showed an interest in this. So the next time something comes out, it'll show up in your feeds of saying, you know, here's the new stuff or something you're going to be interested in. So it's not as important to subscribe as it used to anymore because the algorithm is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But we would appreciate you still saying thank you and giving us 5 stars.
Well, yeah, I want the feedback. I want to know if people are getting little nuggets here and there. I mean, they should be getting nuggets out of every one of these because we're giving it our very best information. I mean, I'm full disclosure. I don't hold anything back. So you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you everything I know about it so that you can be the best business owner you can be. And I know you do the same, right? So
yeah, there's no reason to hold anything back because, we live in a world, Leslie, where everything is available, right? So if you don't get it from us, you just got to track it down. The cool thing about if you come to the program is we are collecting all that data and giving it to you from real life experience. So it's not something we read in a book. It's something we actually did in the trenches on the street in front of a customer. So it's going to be more beneficial for you.
That's right. We are twisted, bent, and exhausted.
God,
some days worse than other days.
Right. That's true. All right, Leslie. All right. Well, I'm going to sign us out. So, hey, guys and gals, have a great week. And we'll see you again next week on the Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted Entrepreneur Podcast. Bye for now.
Bye.